Hello to chapter 36 of Moby Dick by Herman Melville, and this chapter is titled The QuarterDeck. Enter Ahab, then all. It was not a great while after the affair of the pipe that one morning, shortly after breakfast, Ahab, as was his wont, ascended the cabin gangway to the deck. There most sea captains usually walk at that hour, as country gentlemen after the same meal take a few turns in the garden. Soon his steady ivory stride was heard, as to and fro he paced his old rounds upon planks, so familiar to his tread that they were all over-dented like geological stones with the peculiar mark of his walk. Did you fixedly gaze, too, upon that ribbed and dented brow, there also you would see still stranger footprints, the footprints of his one unsleeping, ever-pacing thought. But on the occasion in question, those dents looked deeper, even as his nervous step that morning left a deeper mark, and so full of his thought was Ahab that at every uniform turn that he made, now at the mainmast and now at the binnacle, you could almost see that thought turn in him as he turned, and pace in him as he paced, so completely possessing him, indeed, that it all but seemed the inward mould of every outer movement. "D'ye mark him, Flask?" whispered Stubb. "The chick that's in him packs the shell. 'Twill soon be out." The hours wore on, Ahab now shut up within his cabin, anon pacing the deck with the same intense bigotry of purpose in his aspect. It drew near the close of day. Suddenly he came to a halt by the bulwarks, and inserting his bone leg into the auger hole there, and with one hand grasping a shroud, he ordered Starbuck to send everybody aft. "Sir," said the mate, astonished at an order seldom or never given on shipboard except in some extraordinary case. "Send everybody aft," repeated Ahab. "Mastheads there, come down." When the entire ship's company were assembled, and with curious and not wholly unapprehensive faces were eyeing him, for he looked not unlike the weather horizon when a storm is coming up, Ahab, after rapidly glancing over the bulwarks and then darting his eyes among the crew, started from his standpoint, and, as thought not a soul were nigh him, resumed his heavy turns upon the deck. With bent head and half-slouched head he continued to pace, unmindful of the wondering whispering among the men, till Stubb cautiously whispered to Flask that Ahab must have summoned them there for the purpose of witnessing a pedestrian feat. But this did not last long. Vehemently pausing, he cried, "What do you do when you see a whale, man?" "Sing out for him," was the impulsive rejoinder from a score of clubbed voices. "Good!" cried Ahab, with a wild approval in his tones, observing the hearty animation into which his unexpected question had so magnetically thrown them. "And what do you next, man?" "Lower away and after him." "And what tune is he pulled to, man?" "A dead whale or a stove-boat." More and more strangely and fiercely glad and approving grew the countenance of the old man at every shout, while the mariners began to gaze curiously at each other, as if marveling how it was that they themselves became so excited at such seemingly purposeless questions. But they were all eagerness again. And Ahab, now half revolving in his pivot hole, with one hand reaching high up a shroud and tightly, almost convulsively grasping it, addressed them thus. All ye mastheaders have before now heard me give orders about and a white whale. Look ye, do ye see this Spanish ounce of gold? Holding up a broad, bright coin to the sun. It is a $16 piece, man. Do you see it? Mr. Starbuck, hand me yon topmaul. While the mate was getting the hammer, Ahab, without speaking, was slowly rubbing the gold piece against the skirts of his jacket as if to heighten its luster, and without using any words was meanwhile lowly humming to himself, producing a sound so strangely muffled and inarticulate that it seemed the mechanical humming of the wheels of his vitality in him. Receiving the topmaul from Starbuck, he advanced towards the mainmast with the hammer uplifted in one hand, exhibiting the gold with the other, and with a high-raised voice exclaiming, Whosoever of ye raises me a white-headed whale with a wrinkled brow and a crooked jaw, whosoever of ye raises me that white-headed whale with 3 holes punctured in his starboard fluke, look ye, whosoever ye raises me that same white whale, he shall have this gold ounce, my boys. Huzzah! Huzzah! Cried the seamen, as with swinging tarpaulins they hailed the act of nailing the gold to the mast. It's a white whale, I say, resumed Ahab as he threw down the topmaul. A white whale. Skin your eyes for him, men. Look sharp for white water if you see but a bubble. Sing out. All this while Tashtego, Daggoo, and Queequeg had looked on with even more intense interest and surprise than the rest, and at the mention of the wrinkled brow and crooked jaw they had started as if each was separately touched by some specific recollection. Captain Ahab, said Tashtego, that white whale must be the same that some call Moby Dick. Moby Dick, shouted Ahab. Do you know the white whale then, Tash? Does the fantail a little curious, sir? Before he goes down, said the gay-header deliberately. And has a curious spout, too, said the ghoul. Very bushy, even for a parmacetti, and mighty quick, Captain Ahab. And he have 1, 2, 3, good many iron in him, high too, Captain, cried Queequeg disjointedly. Twisky-tee be twisk like him, faltering hard for a word and screwing his hand round and round as though uncorking a bottle. Like him. Corkscrew, cried Ahab. Aye, Queequeg. The harpoons lie all twisted and wrenched in him. Aye, Daggoo, his spout is a big one, like a whole shock of wheat, and white as a pile of our Nantucket wool after the great annual sheep shearing. Aye, Tashtego, and he fantails like a split jib in a squall. Death and devil's man, it is Moby Dick. Have you seen Moby Dick? Moby Dick! Captain Ahab, said Starbuck, who with Stubb and Flask had thus far been eyeing his superior with increasing surprise, but at last seemed struck with a thought which somewhat explained all the wonder. Captain Ahab, I have heard of Moby Dick, but it was not Moby Dick that took off thy leg? Who told ye that? Cried Ahab, then pausing. Aye, Starbuck, aye, my hearties all round. It was Moby Dick that dismasted me, Moby Dick that brought me to this dead stump I stand on now. Aye, aye, he shouted with a terrific loud animal sob like that of a heart-stricken moose. Aye, aye, it was that accursed white whale that received me, made a poor pegging lubber of me for ever and a day. Then tossing both arms with measureless imprecations, he shouted out, "Aye, aye, and I'll chase him round Good Hope, and round the Horn, and round the Norway maelstrom, and round perdition's flames, before I give him up. And this is what ye have shipped for, men, to chase that white whale on both sides of land, and all over sides of earth, till he spouts black blood, and rolls fin out. Why say ye, man, will you splice hands on it now? I think ye do look brave." "Aye, aye," shouted the harpooneers and seamen, running closer to the excited old man. "A sharp eye for the white whale, a sharp lance for Moby Dick." So I'll have to call it a day for today. I was at my nephew's baptism, so I'm really tired, so I just came home. So yeah, this one's for today. Bye-bye till next time with the second part of this chapter, which is also called the QuarterDeck. Bye.